The little boy was hiding in the classroom closet when Rachel Brooks heard him breathe. Not cry. Not scream. Breathe. A small, broken sound behind the construction paper, stars her second graders had taped to the closet door that morning. Each one covered in glitter, crooked handwriting, and wishes for the future. Rachel froze beside her desk, one hand still wrapped around the strap of her canvas tote bag. Outside the windows, Philadelphia rain painted the schoolyard in silver streaks. The halls were empty. The after-school program had ended 20 minutes ago. The janitor's cart squeaked somewhere far away, then faded into silence. She should have gone home. She had promised herself she would stop staying late. Stop grading papers until the sky turned black. Stop buying crayons with her own money. Stop pretending she could save every child who walked into room 204 with tired eyes and too much silence in their small bodies. Then she heard the breathing again. Rachel set her bag down carefully. "Hello?" she said softly. The closet did not answer. She moved closer, heart beginning to beat too hard. The fluorescent light above her flickered once, turning the classroom into something strange and blue. On the wall, 23 drawings of families smiled back at her in crayon. Houses, dogs, moms with triangle dresses, dads with square shoulders, sons in the corner of every page. Rachel reached for the closet handle. "I'm not going to hurt you," she whispered. "I'm a teacher." For 3 seconds, nothing happened. Then something inside the closet shifted. Rachel opened the door. A little boy sat curled beneath a shelf of math games and broken puppets. His knees pulled to his chest, his face streaked with dirt and tears. He couldn't have been more than 7. One eye was swollen. His lower lip was split. His small hands clutched a gold ring tied to a black ribbon around his neck. The ring was too large for him. A man's ring. Heavy, expensive, stamped with a black V. Rachel's blood went cold. The boy stared at her like she was another monster he had to survive. "Oh, sweetheart," Rachel breathed. He flinched at the word. She immediately backed up, hands open. Okay, I won't come closer." His eyes darted to the window. "No one is here but me," she said, though she wasn't sure that was true anymore. The rain grew harder. Rachel lowered herself slowly to the floor, ignoring the cold linoleum against her skirt. She kept her voice gentle, the same voice she used when a child forgot their lunch, when a student cried because their parents were fighting, when a little girl named Maddie once asked if people could stop loving you if you were too loud. "My name is Rachel," she said. "This is my classroom. You're safe in here." The boy looked down at the ring. His small fingers tightened around it. Rachel saw the bruises then. Not 1. Not 2. Finger-shaped shadows along his wrist. A mark beneath his collar. A dried smear of blood near his ear. Every protective instinct in her body awakened at once. She reached slowly for her phone on the desk. The boy shook his head violently. "I need to call someone who can help," Rachel said. "No police," he whispered. His voice was hoarse, like he had been screaming for hours. Rachel paused. "Why not?" The boy swallowed. "Because they gave me back last time." The room went very still. Rachel's fingers tightened around her phone. Before she could unlock it, the school's front doors slammed open so hard the sound cracked through the building like thunder. The boy made a terrified sound and scrambled backward into the closet. Rachel stood. Heavy footsteps moved through the hallway. Not one person. Many. Controlled. Fast. No shouting, no panic. Then the lights outside her classroom went dark, one by one, as if the building itself was holding its breath. Rachel stepped in front of the closet. The classroom door opened. Men in black suits filled the doorway first. Tall, silent, armed beneath their jackets. Their eyes moved over the room, the desks, the windows, Rachel's hands, the closet behind her. Then they parted, and Dominic Vale walked in. Rachel knew his name because everyone in Philadelphia knew his name, even if they pretended they didn't. Politicians smiled too carefully when asked about him. Police officers lowered their eyes when his cars passed. Restaurant owners cleared private rooms before he requested them. Mothers whispered him into warnings. "Don't go down that block. Don't ask who owns that building. Don't look too long at the man in the black car." Dominic Vale was not loud. He did not need to be. He stepped into Rachel's second-grade classroom in a charcoal coat still wet from the rain, black suit immaculate beneath it, dark hair brushed back, face cut from control and violence. He looked around at the alphabet posters, the paper stars, the tiny chairs, the multiplication chart, as if he had entered a world so innocent it insulted him. His eyes landed on Rachel, then moved behind her. The closet door was still open. The little boy peeked out. Dominic stopped breathing. For one impossible second, the most feared man in Philadelphia looked as if something inside him had been shot. His face did not change much. Not to anyone who didn't know how to look. But Rachel had spent years reading children who said, "I'm fine," with bruised hearts and shaking hands. Dominic Vale was breaking. The boy whispered one word. "Uncle." One of Dominic's men cursed under his breath. Dominic took one step forward. The boy shrank back. Rachel moved between them faster. "Don't," she said. The room went deadly quiet. Every armed man looked at her. Dominic's eyes settled on her face, cold and unreadable now. "Move." "No." A man near the door reached beneath his jacket. Dominic lifted one hand without looking at him. The man froze. Rachel's pulse hammered in her throat, but she held her ground. "He's hurt. He's terrified. And until I know you're not the reason, you are not touching him." Dominic stared at her. No one spoke to him that way. Rachel could see it in the silence. In the way his men waited for consequences. In the way the rain seemed louder against the windows. Then Dominic looked past her at the boy. His voice changed. It became lower. Rougher. "Leo." The boy began to cry. Not loudly, not dramatically, just a silent collapse of his face, as if hearing his name had finally given him permission to be a child again. Dominic's jaw tightened. He took another step, then stopped himself when Leo flinched. That restraint scared Rachel more than rage would have. A man that powerful, stopping himself because a child was afraid of him. Dominic slowly lowered to one knee on the classroom floor. His men looked away, as if witnessing something forbidden. "I was told you were dead," Dominic said. Leo shook his head, sobbing now. Dominic's eyes closed. Only for a second. When they opened, there was violence in them so deep, Rachel felt the temperature in the room drop. But he did not move toward the boy. He looked at Rachel instead. "What did he tell you?" Rachel lifted her chin. "Enough to know someone failed him." Dominic stood. The softness vanished like a door slamming shut. "Then someone dies tonight." Rachel should have been afraid of that sentence. She was, but not only afraid, because when Dominic Vale turned toward the hallway, every man waiting there straightened as if death had just given orders. "Seal the school," Dominic said. "No one enters. No one leaves. Check every room. Find who followed him." Rachel's stomach dropped. "You can't lock down an elementary school." Dominic looked back at her. "I just did." The words should have sounded arrogant. Instead, they sounded like a promise made to the child behind her. A violent, illegal, terrifying promise. And Rachel hated that some part of her felt safer when he said it. The first gunshot cracked from the hallway before anyone could breathe. Dominic moved instantly, not toward the sound, toward Rachel. He crossed the room in 2 strides, shoved her behind him with one arm, and drew a gun from inside his coat so smoothly it felt like part of his body. His other hand reached back, not touching her face, not holding her, but placing himself between her and the door with absolute certainty. Leo screamed. Rachel grabbed the boy and pulled him against her chest as glass shattered from the classroom window. Dominic fired once. The sound was deafening. A shadow dropped outside the window. The children's drawings fluttered from the wall. For a moment, Rachel saw the entire scene as if it were a nightmare painted in flashes. Rain, broken glass, black suits, a mafia boss shielding a teacher, and a child in a room full of crayons. Dominic turned his head slightly. His cheek was inches from Rachel's. "Are you hit?" His voice was calm. Too calm. Rachel's hands shook around Leo. "No." His eyes flicked to the boy. "Leo?" The child buried his face in Rachel's sweater. Dominic's expression hardened, but something painful moved beneath it. "He trusts you," Dominic said. Rachel swallowed. "He doesn't trust anyone." Dominic looked at her then, really looked at her, not as an obstacle, not as a witness, not as a woman he could order away. As the person standing between his blood and the dark. "Then you're coming with us." Rachel stared at him. "Excuse me?" Another gunshot hit the window frame. Dominic did not flinch. "You found him. He came to you. Whoever wants him dead saw your face." His gaze dropped briefly to her mouth, then returned to her eyes, with brutal control. "You are involved whether you want to be or not. I'm not going anywhere with you." His voice lowered. "Yes, you are." Rachel hated how certain he sounded. She hated more that he was probably right. Within 7 minutes, room 204 became a battlefield disguised as a classroom. Dominic's men moved like shadows through the hallways. Someone cut the alarm. Someone else pulled the security footage. The janitor was found tied up in the boiler room, alive but unconscious. 2 men dressed as maintenance workers were dragged from the east stairwell with weapons under their uniforms. Rachel held Leo the entire time. Dominic never touched the boy. Not once. But he watched him as if every bruise was being carved into his own skin. When they finally moved, Dominic took Rachel's tote bag from her desk himself. It looked absurd in his hand, covered in embroidered flowers and a keychain shaped like an apple. He noticed her staring. "You'll need it," he said. "You don't know what I need." "No," Dominic said, "but I know what happens to people after they see what you saw." He led them through the back hall, past the cafeteria, through a service exit where rain fell in sheets. Black SUVs waited behind the school, headlights cutting through fog. Men with umbrellas stood ready, but Dominic ignored them. He removed his own coat and placed it around Rachel's shoulders before she could protest. The coat was warm, heavy, and smelled faintly of cedar, smoke, and expensive wool. Rachel stiffened. "I don't need your coat." Dominic opened the SUV door. "Keep the child warm." That stopped her. Leo was trembling. Rachel wrapped the coat around both of them and climbed inside. Dominic sat across from her, not beside her, as if he understood distance was the only kindness he could offer. The SUV pulled away from the school. Through the rain-streaked window, Rachel watched the building disappear. Her normal life vanished with it. For 10 minutes no one spoke. Leo fell asleep against her, exhaustion finally winning over terror. Rachel kept one hand on his back, feeling each fragile breath. Dominic watched them in silence. His face was composed again, carved into the cold authority that had made a city fear him. But his eyes kept returning to the boy's bruised wrist. Finally, Rachel said, "Who did this to him?" Dominic's jaw flexed. "I don't know yet. Don't lie to me." His gaze lifted to hers. Most people would have looked away. Rachel didn't. Dominic leaned back slightly, studying her with a dangerous kind of interest. "You're either very brave or very unaware of who I am. I know exactly who you are. Then you should be more careful." "I'm a teacher," Rachel said quietly. "Careful doesn't help when a child is bleeding in your closet." Something shifted across his face. Note softness. Recognition, maybe. The first crack in a wall. "He's my nephew," Dominic said after a long silence. "My brother's son." Rachel looked down at Leo. "Your brother did this?" Dominic did not answer fast enough. Rachel felt the truth before he said anything. "My brother told me Leo died 3 months ago," Dominic said. "Car accident. Outside Atlantic City. Closed casket. Private burial." Rachel's throat tightened. "And you believed him?" Dominic's eyes turned black. "I had no reason not to. You're the most powerful man in Philadelphia, and a child in your own family was missing for 3 months?" The silence that followed was colder than anger. One of Dominic's men in the front seat glanced back, then quickly looked away. Dominic's voice became very quiet. "Be careful, Miss Brooks." Rachel leaned forward as much as she could with Leo asleep against her. "No. You be careful. Because I don't care how many men you have, or how many people lower their eyes when you walk into a room. That little boy was hurt by someone who knew your name would protect them. So if you want to scare me, get in line. I've dealt with parents who come to school drunk, kids who haven't eaten since lunch yesterday, and systems that lose children one file at a time. You don't frighten me more than that." Dominic stared at her. The air in the SUV tightened. Then, very slowly, his mouth almost moved. Not a smile. Something darker, more surprised. "Rachel Brooks," he said, as if testing the name. She frowned. "How do you know my full name?" His expression closed. The SUV turned sharply. Rachel's stomach dipped. "Where are we going?" "A safe house." "I didn't agree to that." "No," Dominic said. "You survived long enough for me to insist." The safe house was not a house. It was a converted stone chapel on the edge of the city, hidden behind iron gates and winter trees. Rain ran down stained glass windows, blackened from the outside. The building looked abandoned until the gates opened, and Rachel saw cameras tucked beneath ivy, armed men beneath the arches, and black cars lined like mourning processions. Inside, the chapel had been transformed into a fortress of wealth and secrecy. Candlelight glowed along old stone walls. A modern kitchen sat beneath a vaulted ceiling. A fireplace burned at the far end beside leather chairs and a wall of monitors showing every road leading to the property. Rachel carried Leo inside, refusing help from any of Dominic's men. A woman in her 50s approached with a medical bag. Her name was Dr. Elise Ward, and she spoke with the calm authority of someone who had treated gunshot wounds without asking questions. Rachel did not let Leo go until he woke enough to nod. Dominic watched from the doorway. Again, he did not approach. The examination revealed what Rachel already feared: bruising, dehydration, old injuries, sedatives in his system, rope marks faint but visible. When Dr. Ward finished, Rachel stepped into the hallway and found Dominic standing alone beneath a stained glass image of an angel with a cracked face. "What did they do to him?" he asked. Rachel could have softened the truth. She didn't. They kept him restrained. They drugged him. He's malnourished. And those bruises didn't happen once. Dominic's hands curled at his sides. He turned away from her, but not fast enough. Rachel saw it. The pain, the guilt, the rage so enormous it had nowhere to go. Then he punched the stone wall. The sound was sickening. Blood split across his knuckles. Rachel flinched. Dominic stood there breathing through his nose, eyes lowered, control returning piece by piece. She should have stepped back. Instead, she reached for his hand. He caught her wrist before she touched him. Not hard, but fast. His eyes snapped to hers. "Don't." The word came out rough. Rachel's pulse jumped. They stood too close beneath the fractured angel, his blood on the wall, her wrist caught gently in his hand. His thumb rested against her pulse. She knew he could feel it racing. For a second, the danger shifted. Not away. Into something quieter. More intimate. Dominic looked at the place where he held her, then released her like the contact burned. "I don't need care," he said. Rachel held his gaze. "That's obvious." A faint muscle moved in his cheek. She took a clean cloth from Dr. Ward's tray and held it out. He did not take it, so she stepped closer, slowly, giving him every chance to move away. He didn't. Rachel wrapped the cloth around his bleeding knuckles. His eyes stayed on her face. "Most people don't touch me without permission," he said. "Most people probably don't tell you when you're acting like an idiot." His gaze sharpened, then dropped to her hands. "You talk to me like I'm human. You are human." "No," Dominic said quietly. "I'm useful when people forget that." Rachel tied the cloth tighter than necessary. He didn't react. "Leo doesn't need useful," she said. "He needs safe." Dominic looked toward the room where the boy slept. "He will be. Not if you scare him every time you look at him." That landed. Dominic's face remained cold, but Rachel saw the wound beneath the words. "What do you suggest, Miss Brooks?" "Start by not standing over him like a judge." "I don't know how to be anything else." The confession was so quiet, Rachel almost missed it. She looked at him then, really looked. Beyond the suit. Beyond the reputation. Beyond the violence waiting behind his eyes. Dominic Vale was a man who could command a city, but did not know how to approach a wounded child who shared his blood. And somehow, that frightened him more than bullets. The next morning, Rachel woke in a bedroom that looked like it belonged to a ghost of old money. High ceilings. Dark wood. Rain tracing the windows. A velvet chair in the corner, her tote bag placed neatly by the door. She had slept in her clothes. Not much, maybe 2 hours. When she opened the door, she found a man standing outside. Not Dominic. "A guard." Rachel crossed her arms. "Am I a guest or a prisoner?" The guard looked uncomfortable. Dominic's voice came from the end of the hallway. "That depends on whether you try to leave." Rachel turned. He stood near the stairs in a black shirt with the sleeves rolled to his forearms, his injured hand bandaged cleanly. Without the coat, without the crowd of men, he looked less like a myth and more dangerous because of it. "I need to call my principal," Rachel said. "My sister." "Someone. You can call your sister from a secured line." "My principal?" "No. She's going to report me missing." "She already did." Rachel stared. "What?" Dominic walked closer, holding a tablet. On it was a news headline. "Philadelphia teacher missing after school break-in." Rachel grabbed it. Below the headline was a photo of her from the school website, smiling, holding a book, safe in a life that no longer existed. Her stomach dropped. "They're making me look kidnapped. You were nearly killed." "By who?" Dominic's silence answered enough. Rachel lowered the tablet. "Your brother." His eyes did not move. "Possibly." "Dominic." It was the first time she said his first name. Something in his expression changed, just briefly. My brother Julian is charming, Dominic said. That makes people underestimate him. He smiles when he lies. He cries at funerals. He remembers birthdays. And he has always wanted what I have. Your empire. Dominic's mouth hardened. My name. Rachel thought of Leo's bruises. And the child? Dominic looked toward the lower level, where Leo sat wrapped in a blanket near the fireplace, watching a cartoon with the sound low. Dr. Ward sat beside him. Leo's mother died last year, Dominic said. Julian claimed grief broke him. Then he told us Leo died too. Rachel's voice softened despite herself. What was his mother's name? Isabel. Did you know her? Dominic nodded once. She hated me. Why? Because she knew my family too well. Before Rachel could ask more, one of Dominic's men entered. Boss. Dominic's face became unreadable. What? We found the school footage. Rachel followed them to the monitor wall despite Dominic's look that clearly told her not to. I'm involved, remember? She said. His eyes narrowed. But he didn't stop her. The footage showed the hallway outside room 204 2 hours before Rachel found Leo. A janitor's cart passed. Then a man in a maintenance uniform appeared. Dragging something. No. Someone. Leo. Rachel's hand flew to her mouth. The man opened her classroom door with a keycard. Her keycard. Rachel stepped back. That's impossible. Dominic looked at her. Where is your badge? In my desk. The footage skipped. A woman entered the frame. Rachel's breath caught. It was Monica Ellis, the assistant principal. Monica, who brought Rachel coffee on long days. Monica, who organized book fairs. Monica, who once cried in Rachel's classroom after her divorce. Monica used Rachel's badge to open the door. Then she looked directly at the camera and smiled. Rachel felt the world tilt. No, she whispered. No, she wouldn't. Dominic watched her carefully. You know her. She's my friend. She put a hunted child in your room. Rachel shook her head, refusing the betrayal even as it stood on the screen. Maybe she was trying to save him. Dominic's voice was cold. Or frame you. You. A message appeared on the tablet in one of his men's hands. Dominic read it. Something shifted in the room. What is it? Rachel asked. Dominic handed her the tablet. The message was from an unknown number. Give us the teacher and the boy walks away alive. Rachel's body went numb. Dominic took the tablet back before her hands could shake too badly. They don't want Leo, Rachel said. No, they want me. Dominic's eyes met hers. Yes. Rachel looked toward the fireplace where Leo sat too quietly for a child watching cartoons. Why? Dominic did not answer. Because he didn't know, and Rachel realized that scared him. By noon, Dominic's entire operation had bent around one question. Why would Julian Vale want a second-grade teacher? Names moved across screens. Bank transfers. School donations. Foster records. Police reports. Security images. Rachel's life appeared piece by piece on Dominic's monitors, dissected by men who could find anything except the truth that mattered. Rachel hated it. She hated seeing her apartment, her workplace, her sister's address, her old college ID, her father's obituary. She hated more that Dominic ordered several files closed the moment he realized she was watching. What don't you want me to see? She asked. Dominic stood with his back to her. Things that are not relevant. My life is relevant when your men are tearing it apart. He turned. You were almost murdered because of something in your life. Then I deserve to know what. You deserve to stay alive first. Rachel laughed once, bitterly. That's what men like you always say, isn't it? Protection first. Truth later. Control disguised as care. Dominic walked closer. The room seemed to shrink around him. You think I enjoy this? I think you're used to people obeying you. Yes, he said, because obedience keeps them breathing. I'm not one of your men. No, Dominic said, his voice dropping. That is becoming increasingly difficult to ignore. The words hung between them. Dangerous. Intimate. Rachel felt heat rise beneath her skin and hated herself for it. Dominic noticed. Of course he did. His gaze lowered for half a second, then lifted again with restraint so sharp it felt physical. He stepped back. Your sister is safe, he said. I put 2 men near her building. Rachel's heart jumped. You what? She doesn't know. You're watching my sister? I'm protecting her. You don't get to decide that. I already did. Rachel moved toward him, furious. You cannot just place guards around everyone I love. Dominic's jaw tightened. I can when someone is using everyone you love to reach you. I didn't ask for this. No, he said. Leo did. That silenced her. Dominic's face softened by a fraction, then hardened again as if he regretted it. Rachel turned away first. Not because she was beaten, because he was right, and she hated that too. That evening, Leo finally spoke more than a few words. Rachel sat with him near the fireplace, helping him draw because drawing was less threatening than questions. Dominic stood on the balcony above, unseen by Leo, but not by Rachel. Watching. Always watching. Leo drew a house with no windows. Then a black car. Then a man with no face. Rachel kept her voice soft. Who is that? Leo stared at the paper. The smiling man. Rachel's chest tightened. Julian? Leo nodded. What did he want from you? Leo pressed the crayon so hard it snapped. The ring. Rachel looked at the black ribbon around his neck. Your ring? Daddy said, don't let them have it. Dominic moved on the balcony. Leo flinched at the sound. Dominic stopped immediately. Rachel looked up. He stood in shadow. One hand on the railing. Face unreadable, but eyes fixed on the child. Rachel turned back to Leo. Can I see it? Leo hesitated, then pulled the ring over his head and placed it in Rachel's palm. It was heavier than she expected. Gold. Old. The black V carved into the face was surrounded by tiny Latin words. Dominic came down the stairs slowly. Leo tensed, but Rachel rested a hand near him, not touching unless he wanted it. Dominic crouched several feet away. Not too close. Rachel noticed. So did Leo. That was your father's, Dominic said. Leo looked at him through wet lashes. He said it opens the door. Dominic went still. Rachel looked between them. What door? Dominic held out his hand. May I? Leo looked at Rachel first. The movement pierced something in Dominic's expression. Rachel nodded gently. Only if you want. Leo placed the ring in Dominic's palm. Dominic turned it under the firelight. His face changed. Not much. Enough. What is it? Rachel asked. Dominic stood. A vault key. To money? To records. What records? His eyes lifted to hers. The kind people die for. Before he could say more, alarms erupted through the chapel. Red light washed over the stone walls. Dominic closed his hand around the ring. His men moved instantly. Rachel pulled Leo behind her. What's happening? She asked. Dominic checked the monitor. On the screen, black vehicles rolled through the trees beyond the gate. Not Dominic's cars. More. Too many. His voice turned lethal. Julian found us. The safe house exploded into motion. Men armed themselves. Doors sealed. Lights cut out. The old chapel became a fortress under siege. Dominic walked toward Rachel and Leo. Basement tunnel, he said. Now. Basement tunnel. 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 He said. Who Mary? Rachel picked Leo up, but the boy cried out in pain. Dominic took one step forward, then stopped, fighting instinct. Rachel saw it, the desperate urge to carry him, the fear of making him more afraid. She looked at Leo. Sweetheart. Dominic can carry you faster. Is that okay? Leo looked at his uncle. Dominic's face was controlled, but his eyes were raw. I won't let them take you, he said. Leo hesitated, then reached for him. Dominic's breath caught so quietly Rachel almost didn't hear it. He lifted the boy with a care that did not match his hands, his power, his reputation. Leo stiffened at first, then slowly clutched Dominic's shirt. Something inside Dominic broke open. He looked away, jaw tight, as if the child's trust hurt worse than any wound. Rachel followed them down a hidden stairwell behind the old altar. Gunfire began upstairs. The sound echoed through stone. Dominic's men moved around them. But Dominic stayed close to Rachel. Leo in one arm, gun in the other. At the bottom, an underground tunnel stretched beneath the chapel, lit by emergency lights. Water dripped from old brick. The air smelled of earth and metal. They ran. Halfway through the tunnel, the lights flickered. A blast shook the ceiling. Rachel stumbled. Dominic caught her with his free hand, fingers closing around her waist. For one breath, she was pressed against him, Leo between them, danger all around, his face inches from hers. Are you hurt? He asked. No. His hand remained at her waist 1 second too long. Then he released her. At the tunnel exit, two of Julian's men were waiting. Dominic handed Leo to Rachel. Cover his eyes. Dominic. Rachel. The way he said her name stopped her. Not a command. A plea buried inside one. She covered Leo's face and turned him into her shoulder. Dominic moved. Fast, silent, brutal. The violence was over in seconds. Rachel did not see all of it. She heard enough. When Dominic returned, there was blood on his shirt. Not his. His face was calm again, but his eyes searched hers as if expecting horror. Rachel was horrified. But she also knew those men had been standing between Leo and survival. Dominic seemed to read both truths in her face. You should be afraid of me, he said. I am. His expression went still. Rachel swallowed. But right now, I'm more afraid of the men you're fighting. Something passed between them then. Not forgiveness. Not acceptance. Understanding, maybe. The most dangerous kind. They emerged near a foggy harbor where another SUV waited beneath an overpass. Rain turned the river black. Sirens wailed somewhere far away. Dominic put Leo inside first, then turned to Rachel. A bullet hit the metal beam beside her head. Dominic slammed her against the SUV, covering her body with his. His hand cradled the back of her head before it hit the door. For a second, the world was only rain, gunfire, his body shielding hers, his breath harsh near her ear. Stay down, he said. You're bleeding. Not enough. He fired over the roof. Rachel looked down and saw blood spreading near his ribs. This time, it was his. Her heart lurched. Dominic. His eyes flicked to her. There it was. Fear. Not for himself. For her. Get in the car, he said. No. His stare sharpened. This is not the moment to argue. You're hit. I've been hit before. Congratulations. Even then, under gunfire, something almost like disbelief crossed his face. Then another shot shattered the back window. Dominic pushed her inside and climbed in after her. The SUV tore away from the harbor. Leo sobbed in the back seat. Rachel pulled him close with one arm and pressed her other hand to Dominic's wound. Hey, he's set. Good, she said. You're alive enough to be annoyed. His mouth tightened. You talk too much when you're scared. You get bossier when you're bleeding. I'm always bossy. Then maybe you're always bleeding. He looked at her. The words had landed somewhere neither of them expected. His voice lowered. Don't try to understand me, Rachel. Why? Because you'll find something you won't like. She pressed harder against the wound. I already have. He held her gaze through the dim interior of the SUV. Rain washed the windows. Leo trembled against her side. Dominic's blood warmed her palm. And Rachel realized the line she had been standing behind since the classroom was gone. Not crossed. Destroyed. The next safe house was a penthouse above the city. All glass walls and dark marble. High enough that Philadelphia glittered below like a field of broken stars. Helicopters pulsed in the distance. Armed guards lined the private elevator. The luxury of it felt cold, lonely, untouched by children or warmth. Dr. Ward stitched Dominic at the kitchen island, while Rachel sat beside Leo on the couch. Dominic refused painkillers. Rachel watched him from across the room, irritated by how still he remained as the needle went through his skin. Leo fell asleep again, curled beneath a cashmere blanket too expensive for any child to care about. When Dr. Ward left, Rachel walked to the kitchen. Dominic poured whiskey into a glass. She took it from his hand. His eyebrow lifted. You were shot, she said. I noticed. You don't need whiskey. What do I need? The question came too quietly. Rachel stared at him. Dominic looked exhausted beneath the control. Not weak. Never that. But worn down by years of being obeyed and feared, and never held accountable by anyone who cared whether he lived through the night. You need to sit down before you tear your stitches, she said. He leaned one hand on the counter, gaze fixed on her. You order me around in my own home. This is your home? One of them. Rachel looked around the glass palace in the sky. That's sad. A flicker of surprise crossed his face, then something darker. Most people call it impressive. Most people are trying not to die. For a moment, silence. Then Dominic actually laughed. It was brief, low, almost unwilling. Rachel hated the way it moved through her. His expression shifted as if the sound had betrayed him too. He looked away first. A phone rang. The air changed. Dominic answered. Julian's voice came through on speaker, smooth and warm, almost pleasant. Brother. Dominic's face became stone. Rachel froze. How did the teacher enjoy the chapel? Julian asked. Too dramatic? I always thought you had a weakness for religious guilt. Dominic said nothing. Julian chuckled. Is she there? Rachel Brooks. The saint, with chalk dust on her hands. Rachel's skin crawled. Dominic's eyes moved to her. Julian continued. Tell her I'm sorry about Monica. She did try to save the boy at first. But people are flexible when you know what they love. Rachel's breath caught. Monica. Dominic's hand tightened around the phone. What do you want? He asked. The ring, the boy, the teacher. You'll get none of them. You haven't opened the vault yet, have you? Julian asked. You don't know what your father kept. You don't know what empire you inherited. Dominic's eyes darkened. Julian's voice softened, cruelly. Ask Rachel why her mother's name is in Vale records. Rachel went cold. Dominic looked at her. She shook her head. My mother? Oh, Julian said. She doesn't know. How delicious. Dominic ended the call. The silence afterward was violent. Rachel stepped closer. What does he mean? Dominic did not answer. You said you searched my life. His jaw worked. Dominic. He looked at her then, and she saw the one thing she had not expected. Guilt. What did you hide? She whispered. Dominic walked to the monitor wall and pulled up a file. An old photograph appeared. Rachel's mother stood younger, smiling nervously beside a man Rachel didn't recognize. Behind them was a charity building with the Vale Foundation logo. Rachel touched the screen. My mother worked nights at a shelter, she said. She said it closed because of funding. Dominic's voice was low. It was funded by my father. What kind of shelter? For children no one was looking for. Rachel turned slowly. Dominic did not flinch from her face. What does that mean? It was supposed to be a rescue network, he said. At least that's what the public records said. Foster placement. Emergency housing. Medical care. Supposed to be. Dominic's silence gutted her. Rachel stepped back. No, I don't know everything yet. No. Her voice broke. Don't say that like it helps. Dominic moved toward her, then stopped himself. Rachel. Was my mother involved? I don't know. Was she hurt? His face tightened. She died in a car accident when you were 12. Rachel's throat closed. How do you know that? Because after Julian said your name, I had my people search deeper. You searched my dead mother? Yes. The honesty hit like a slap. Rachel stared at him, pain sharpening into anger. You had no right. No, he said. I didn't. That stopped her almost more than a defense would have. Dominic looked at her with no excuse in his eyes. I did it anyway because you were in danger. You always have a reason. Yes. And the reason always ends with you taking something. His face hardened, but the hurt went through him before he buried it. Rachel turned away. She couldn't breathe in that penthouse, couldn't stand the city lights, the blood on his shirt, the possibility that her mother's life and death had been tangled with his family long before Rachel opened that closet door. Leo woke crying. Rachel went to him immediately. Dominic stayed where he was. For the rest of the night, Rachel did not speak to him. But near dawn, when Leo finally slept, Rachel found Dominic on the rooftop terrace in the rain. He stood without a coat, one hand pressed lightly to his stitched side, city lights behind him. A helicopter waited on the far pad, its blades still. He looked like a man who owned the skyline and belonged nowhere inside it. Rachel should have stayed away. Instead, she stepped outside. Dominic did not turn. You should be sleeping. So should you. I don't sleep much. That explains your personality. A pause. Then his mouth almost softened. Almost. Rachel stood beside him, leaving space between them. Rain misted her hair. My mother was kind, she said. Not soft. Kind. There's a difference. Dominic looked at her profile. She used to bring home kids' coats from the shelter and wash them in our bathtub because she said every child deserved to smell clean, even if the world had been cruel. Dominic said nothing. If your family used her kindness for something ugly. Rachel swallowed. I need to know. I'll find the truth. No, she said. We will. His gaze sharpened. Absolutely not. Rachel laughed bitterly. There he is. This is not a school meeting you can argue your way through. And this is not your confession booth where you get to decide what sins I can handle. Dominic turned fully. Rain clung to his lashes, his shirt, his bandage beneath the dark fabric. You don't know what my world does to people like you. Rachel stepped closer. People like me? People who still believe saving one child matters. It does matter. His voice dropped. It matters too much. That's why it gets used against you. Rachel looked at him. Is that what happened to you? Dominic went very still. For a moment, she thought he would shut down completely. Then he looked away at the city. My father taught me that mercy was debt, he said. If someone begged, they owed you. If someone cried, they were weak. If someone needed protection, they became property. Rachel's anger softened despite herself. Dominic continued. I spent years making the Vale name untouchable, because I thought fear would keep order. No one moved without my permission. No one sold children. No one touched families. Those were my rules. And Julian? Dominic's eyes darkened. Julian learned to smile under them. Rachel understood then. Dominic had built an empire on control, believing control was protection. But evil had grown underneath it anyway. Quietly, with his name as cover. You didn't know, she said. I should have. The words were not self-pity. They were a sentence he had already passed on himself. Rachel reached for his bandaged hand. This time he did not stop her. Her fingers rested over his. His hand was cold from the rain, strong, still. He looked down at their hands like he didn't understand why she would touch something that had done so much harm. You should hate me, he said. I'm working on it. His eyes lifted. The smallest breath of almost humor passed between them, fragile and dangerous. Then the rooftop door opened. One of Dominic's men appeared. Boss. We found the vault. Dominic's hand tightened around Rachel's before he released her. The vault was not in a bank. It was beneath an abandoned church in South Philadelphia. A place with boarded windows, broken statues, and old candles melted into the floor. Dominic took Rachel because she refused to stay behind, and because Leo panicked when she left his sight. So Leo came too, asleep in Dr. Ward's care inside the armored SUV parked outside. Inside the church, the ring fit into the base of a stone altar. A hidden mechanism groaned. Stairs opened beneath the floor. Rachel descended behind Dominic, heart pounding. The vault below smelled of dust, iron, and old secrets. Rows of boxes lined the walls. Hard drives, ledgers, photographs, birth certificates, adoption files, children's files, hundreds of them. Rachel's knees nearly gave out. Dominic stood in the center of the room, silent as death. One of his men opened a ledger. Names, dates, payments, transfers. Rachel saw the Vale Foundation letterhead. Then her mother's name, Anna Brooks. Her hand flew to her mouth. Dominic took the file before anyone else could touch it. He opened it carefully. Inside were photographs of children, notes in her mother's handwriting, a list of police officers, judges, social workers, donors, time, time, notes, and a stime, hand, a mother's, you, and a listime, time, 2, 1. Rachel's voice trembled. She was investigating it. Dominic read the final page. His face changed. What? Rachel asked. He handed it to her. The note was dated 3 days before her mother died. If anything happens to me, the child named in file 513 must be protected. He is the proof. He is the heir. They will kill him before they let Dominic know. Rachel looked up slowly. File Vionich? A man found the folder. Dominic opened it. Inside was a birth certificate. Leo Vale. Father, Julian Vale. Mother, Isabel Marin. Attached was another document. Inheritance transfer clause. Upon the death, disappearance, or legal incapacity of Julian Vale, controlling shares of the Vale Foundation and certain offshore holdings transferred to Leo Vale. Rachel understood before Dominic spoke. Julian needed him dead, she whispered. But not dead officially. Hidden, controlled. Dominic's voice was quiet. Terrifying. And if Leo was found alive, Julian needed someone else to blame. Me. Dominic looked at her. Yes. The betrayal sharpened. Monica had put Leo in Rachel's classroom so Rachel would be found with him. The missing teacher. The injured child. The files that would surface. A perfect scandal. A perfect distraction. Dominic opened another box. Photos spilled across the table. Rachel stopped breathing. They were photos of her, leaving school, buying groceries, standing at her mother's grave, sitting in her apartment window grading papers. Dominic's face went blank in a way Rachel had learned meant murder was very close. How long? She asked. One of his men checked the dates. 2 years. Rachel backed away. Dominic reached toward her, then stopped before touching her. The restraint was agony in his face. Rachel, you said you only started searching me yesterday. I did. Then who took these? Dominic looked at the photos. His voice dropped to something almost inhuman. Julien. A phone began ringing from somewhere inside the vault. Everyone froze. It was an old landline mounted to the wall. Dominic answered. Julian's voice filled the room. You found Mother's little scrapbook. Dominic said nothing. You always were slow with family secrets, Julian continued. Father kept them because he liked insurance. I kept them because I prefer leverage. Dominic's hand tightened around the receiver. Julian sighed. Rachel, if you're listening, your mother was brave. Stupid, but brave. She tried to tell Dominic's father the foundation was being used to move children. Unfortunately, powerful men dislike moral women. Rachel's eyes burned. Dominic looked at her. I was 10, Julian said softly. I watched them clean the blood from the road after her accident. That was the day I learned family survives by deciding who is disposable. Dominic's voice was lethal. Where are you? Julian laughed. Ask the teacher if she remembers the field trip permission slips she signed last week. Rachel went cold. Her students. No. Dominic's eyes snapped to her face. Rachel whispered, the museum trip. Julian's voice turned cheerful. Bus leaves in 20 minutes. The line went dead. For 1 second, no one moved. Then Dominic erupted into command. Cars, routes, school contacts, police scanners, helicopter. Every man moved at once. Rachel grabbed Dominic's arm. My students are on that bus. His eyes were already somewhere else, calculating violence. They won't be. I'm coming. No. Dominic. No. She stepped in front of him. Those are my kids. His control cracked. And you are what he wants. The vault went silent. Rachel stared at him. Dominic's chest rose and fell once. The confession hung between them, bigger than fear. You are what he wants. But under it was the truth he had not meant to reveal. You are what I cannot lose. Rachel's voice softened. Then use that. Dominic went still. No. Julian wants me? Fine. Let him think he can get me. No. You said obedience keeps people breathing. Rachel stepped closer, eyes wet but steady. Today, those children breathe because you listened to me. Dominic looked at her with fury, fear, and something dangerously close to desperation. I won't risk you. You already did when you brought me into the truth. His hand rose as if he wanted to touch her face. He stopped inches away. The almost touch hurt more than contact. Rachel, he said, voice rough. If he takes you, he won't. You don't know that. No, she whispered. But I know you'll come. Dominic closed his eyes. For the first time, the feared Mafia boss looked defeated by trust. Not betrayed by it. Defeated. The museum bus never reached the highway. Dominic's men boxed it in 3 blocks from the school. Black SUVs surrounding the yellow bus in the rain, while terrified parents screamed behind police tape. Rachel stepped out of one SUV with her hands visible, wearing a wire beneath her sweater and Dominic's coat over her shoulders. Dominic hated the plan. It showed in every line of his body as he watched from the shadows of a nearby parking garage, riflemen on rooftops, men hidden in delivery vans, every exit covered. Rachel walked toward Monica Ellis, who stood near the bus pretending to comfort children. Their eyes met. Monica began to cry. Rachel's anger faltered. Why? Rachel asked quietly. Monica shook her head. He has my daughter. Rachel's heart cracked despite everything. Julian? Monica nodded, tears spilling. I didn't know they would hurt the boy. I swear I didn't know. They told me if I put him in your room, he'd be found safe. They told me Dominic would come, and it would all end. Rachel looked past her at the bus windows, small faces pressed against the glass. Her students, afraid, trusting her. Where is Julian? Rachel asked. Monica's face twisted. Behind Rachel, a familiar voice said, Closer than my brother thinks. Rachel turned. Julian Vale stood beside a black sedan, smiling beneath an umbrella. He looked nothing like Dominic except in the bones of his face. Where Dominic was shadow and restraint, Julian was warmth sharpened into a weapon. Beautiful suit. Charming eyes. A man you would trust right before he sold the floor beneath your feet. Miss Brooks, Julian said. You've caused an extraordinary amount of trouble for an elementary school teacher, Julian said. Rachel's mouth went dry. She lifted her chin. Let the children go. Julian smiled. You sound just like your mother. The world narrowed. Dominic's voice crackled faintly in her hidden earpiece. Do not move closer. Rachel ignored the instinct to look toward him. Julian stepped toward her. You know, Rachel, Dominic thinks violence is power. It isn't. Power is making good people do unforgivable things for someone they love. His gaze flicked to Monica, then back to Rachel. Your mother understood that. She died with evidence in her hands and still failed to save them. Rachel's hands trembled. Save who? Julian's smile faded into something colder. All the children Dominic's empire pretended not to see. A gunshot cracked from the rooftop. Not at Julian. At the bus tire. Children screamed. Dominic's men moved, but Julian grabbed Rachel and pulled her against him, gun pressed beneath her ribs. Every weapon in the street aimed at them. Dominic emerged from the parking garage. No hesitation. No cover. Just him walking into the rain, face like death, eyes locked on Rachel. Julian laughed softly near her ear. There he is. The king without a throne. Dominic stopped 10 feet away. Let her go. The words were calm. Too calm. Julian pressed the gun harder against Rachel. Give me the ring. Give me Leo. Publicly confess the foundation was yours. Then maybe I won't make you watch her die. Dominic's eyes did not leave Rachel's. She saw the calculation, the terror beneath it, the readiness to burn everything. Dominic, she said softly. His jaw tightened. Julian smiled. She says your name beautifully. That must be new for you. Being human. Dominic reached into his coat. His men shifted. Slowly, Dominic removed the gold ring. Then he placed it on the wet pavement. Take it. Julian's eyes lit with triumph. And the confession? Dominic took out his phone and placed a call. Every news station in Philadelphia received the same file within seconds. Not a confession. Everything. The ledgers. The photos. The trafficking records. The names of judges, officers, donors, businessmen. The Vale Foundation documents. Julian's accounts. Audio from the phone calls. Video from the school. Julian's smile disappeared. Dominic looked at his brother. You wanted my empire destroyed, he said. So I destroyed it. Sirens began to rise across the city. Julian's gun hand shook. You stupid bastard, Julian hissed. You'll go down with me. Dominic's voice was quiet. I know. Rachel's heart stopped. No, she whispered. Dominic looked at her. For 1 second, in the rain. With weapons raised and children crying and his empire collapsing across every screen in Philadelphia, he let her see everything. Fear. Not of prison. Not of death. Of leaving her in a world still burning. Julian snarled and shoved Rachel away, raising the gun toward Dominic. Rachel fell hard to the pavement. Dominic moved. The street exploded. Gunfire shattered windows. Men shouted. Parents screamed. Rachel crawled toward the bus as Dominic tackled Julian into the side of the sedan. The brothers crashed through glass and rain, two halves of the same poison bloodline tearing each other apart. Rachel reached the bus door and pulled it open. Go, she shouted. Everyone out. Stay low. Children sobbed as she guided them into the arms of Dominic's men, who shielded them with their own bodies, despite the chaos. Rachel counted every face, every name, every small hand. Then she saw Leo. He stood near the back of another SUV, watching Dominic fight Julian. Leo, Rachel screamed. The boy ran, not away, toward Dominic. Julian saw him. A horrible smile crossed his face. He reached for a fallen gun. Rachel moved without thinking. She ran into the open street. Dominic turned at the same moment. Everything slowed. Julian lifted the gun toward Leo. Rachel threw herself over the child. Dominic fired. Julian fell. The street went silent except for rain. Rachel opened her eyes. Leo was beneath her, crying but alive. Dominic stood several feet away, gun still raised, his face emptied by what he had done. Then he saw blood on Rachel's sleeve. He dropped the gun. No, it was not loud. It was worse. It was the sound of a man whose soul had left his body. Dominic crossed the street and fell to his knees beside her. His hands hovered over her. Suddenly unsure. Terrified of hurting her. Terrified of not touching her. Rachel. She blinked up at him. I'm okay. You're bleeding. It's my arm. He pressed his hand to the wound. his control gone completely. "Look at me," he said. "Stay with me. I'm right here." His eyes were wild now, all the calm power stripped away. "You don't get to do that," he said, voice breaking. "You don't get to put yourself between death and a child like your life means less." Rachel looked at Leo, alive and sobbing in Dr. Ward's arms. "My life doesn't mean less," she whispered. "His life means something too." Dominic stared at her. Rain slid down his face like tears, but his eyes were already full of them. "You impossible woman," he breathed. Rachel almost smiled. Then the pain hit, and the world faded. When Rachel woke, she was in a hospital room filled with white light, fresh flowers, and armed guards outside the door. Luxury hospital. Private floor. Of course. Her arm was bandaged. Her body ached. Rain tapped softly against the windows. Dominic sat beside her bed in the same clothes from the street. Ruined suit, blood at his collar, face hollow from sleeplessness. His hand rested on the edge of the mattress, close to hers but not touching. She watched him for a moment. The feared Mafia Boss of Philadelphia looked like a man waiting for judgment. "You look terrible," she whispered. His eyes opened instantly. Relief hit his face so violently it almost hurt to witness. "Rachel." She tried to move. He stood. "Don't. You're still bossy." His laugh broke halfway through. He looked away, pressing his fingers to his mouth, fighting emotion like it was another enemy. Rachel's chest tightened. "Leo? Safe. With Dr. Ward. Child Services is being handled by people who aren't on Julian's payroll. Monica's daughter was found alive." Rachel closed her eyes. "My students? All safe. And you?" Silence. Rachel opened her eyes. Dominic sat back down. "The FBI has everything," he said. "My lawyers are negotiating. Half my organization is gone. The foundation is finished. Properties frozen. Accounts seized. You destroyed it." "Yes." "Do you regret it?" Dominic looked at her. "No." No hesitation. Rachel swallowed. "What happens now?" His gaze dropped to her bandaged arm. "Now I make sure the children are protected. Not by fear, by something clean." "That sounds almost legal." A faint shadow of a smile touched his mouth. "I'm told it's fashionable." Rachel studied him. "And what happens to you?" His smile vanished. "I don't know." That honesty settled between them. Dominic reached into his pocket and removed the gold ring. Leo's ring. He placed it on the bedside table. "He asked me to keep it until he stops having nightmares." Rachel's eyes softened. "That's trust." Dominic stared at the ring. "It feels heavier than the Empire did." "Good." He looked at her. She lifted her uninjured hand and placed it over his. This time, he did not freeze. He turned his hand beneath hers, slowly, as if accepting warmth required courage. "I was afraid," he said. Rachel waited. His voice lowered. "When I saw you fall, I realized there was no version of my life after you that I wanted to survive." Her breath caught. Dominic looked ashamed of the confession and unable to take it back. "I know what I am," he said. "I know what I've done. I won't pretend love makes me clean." Rachel's fingers tightened around his. "I'm not asking you to be clean." His eyes lifted. "I'm asking you to become honest," she said. "With me, with Leo, with yourself." Dominic absorbed that, like a sentence and a mercy. "I can do honest," he said quietly. "For you." "No," Rachel whispered. "For you first." The corner of his mouth moved, almost broken. Then he leaned closer. Slowly, giving her time to pull away. He stopped inches from her, always stopping, always controlling the fire. Rachel closed the distance herself. The kiss was not soft at first. It was restrained, aching, full of everything they had survived without naming. His hand rose to her face, but touched her like she was something sacred, not something owned. Rachel felt the danger in him still, the darkness, the violence that would never fully disappear. But she also felt the man who had kneeled on a classroom floor because a child was afraid. The man who destroyed his empire, rather than let it devour another innocent life. The man who had learned, painfully and too late, that protection without truth was just another kind of cage. When they parted, Dominic rested his forehead near hers, not quite touching. "Tell me to leave," he whispered, "and I will." Rachel looked into his eyes. The old Dominic would have commanded. This one asked. That was the difference. "Stay," she said. So he did. Months later, room 204 looked different. The broken window had been replaced. The closet door had been repainted yellow. The paper stars were new. On the wall, above the reading corner, Rachel had hung a framed quote in simple black letters. Every child deserves to be found. The school had changed too. New security. New staff. New funding from a foundation, with no Vale name attached to it. Run by a board of teachers, child advocates, and survivors. Rachel returned to teaching on a cold morning when sunlight turned the classroom gold. Her students ran to her in a wave of hugs and questions. She laughed for the first time in what felt like years. At the back of the classroom, Leo sat at a desk near the window. He was thinner than he should have been, quieter than most children, but he smiled when Rachel handed him a new box of crayons. A black SUV waited across the street. Not hidden, not looming, just there. Rachel saw Dominic standing beside it in a dark coat, speaking with a federal agent on one side and Dr. Ward on the other. He looked different in daylight. Still powerful. Still dangerous, but no longer untouched by the world around him. Leo saw him too. The boy lifted one small hand. Dominic stopped mid-sentence, then lifted his hand back. A small gesture, an enormous one. After school, Rachel found Dominic outside beneath bare winter trees. Snow had begun to fall lightly over Philadelphia, softening the edges of the city that had once felt made of rain and blood. "You're late," she said. Dominic looked at his watch. "By 2 minutes. Unacceptable. I'll accept punishment." Rachel gave him a look. He almost smiled. They walked together toward the schoolyard gate. No guards crowded them. No men interrupted. But Rachel knew they were nearby. Dominic Vale would never become careless. He had simply learned the difference between watching over someone and trapping them. At the gate, Rachel stopped. "Leo asked if you'd come to career day." Dominic stared at her. "No." Rachel laughed. "That was fast. I cannot speak to second graders about my career. You could say you're retired." "I'm not retired." "Reformed?" His eyes narrowed slightly. "Under renovation," she offered. Dominic looked toward the classroom window where Leo was gathering his backpack. "Does he want me there?" Rachel's teasing faded. "Yes." Dominic was quiet for a long time. Then he nodded once. "I'll come." Rachel slipped her hand into his. He looked down at it like he still had not grown used to being touched without fear. Snow landed on his dark hair, on his shoulders, on the hand holding hers. A year ago, Rachel had been an ordinary teacher staying late in an empty classroom. Then a child breathed behind a closet door. Then a mafia boss walked in with rain on his coat and death at his back. And somehow, from all that darkness, something impossible had survived. Not clean, not simple, not safe in the way fairy tales promise safety, but real. Dominic turned toward her, his face calm, his eyes no longer empty. "You saved him," he said. Rachel looked at Leo through the window. "No," she whispered. "We found him." Dominic's thumb brushed over her knuckles. Across the street, the black SUV waited beneath falling snow. Behind them, children's laughter spilled from the school doors. And for the first time in his life, Dominic Vale stood between both worlds, the darkness that made him and the light that had finally taught him what power was supposed to protect. Rachel leaned into his side. He lowered his mouth to her hair. "Not a public claim. Not possession. A promise." And when Leo ran out of the school carrying his backpack and a drawing of 3 figures standing beneath a yellow sun, Dominic opened his arms. The boy ran straight into them. Rachel watched Dominic hold him, careful and fierce. As snow fell over Philadelphia, like the city had been given one quiet chance to begin again, Dominic looked at Rachel over Leo's head. The world still feared him, but she knew the truth now. The most dangerous man in Philadelphia had not been destroyed by love. He had been remade by it. And somewhere far beneath the city, in the ruins of an empire built on silence, the old Vale name finally stopped echoing. In its place came something softer. A child laughing, a teacher smiling through tears, and a man who had once ruled through fear, holding the family he never believed he deserved.